Go ahead and play the video. In all of life's moments, it's important just to be still sometimes and remember what He is. I'm going to talk a little bit today about fear and about getting out of our comfort zone. For you guys that just graduated high school, now here was me, and I thought how happy I am to be at high school. Fortunately, you know, it wasn't like this one guy that I worked with, and he related to me what his dad got him for his 18th birthday. And that was a suitcase. And he said, so I packed it up and I moved on my 18th birthday. While you're excited, it's a little bit scary because now you got to begin this thing called life. And sometimes you don't know what kind of path that's going to take you on. I'm one of those people that worries more than I should, I guess. And live always with a certain amount of fear. We were just talking before church about how, you know, we're about to go on this trip. And I'm the guy who always worries, you know, what if the car breaks down? What if they lose my reservations and all these things? And I worry about what will happen. And I know I probably shouldn't, but put our first slide there with scripture. Proverbs 9:10 says, fear of the Lord is the foundation of wisdom. Knowledge of the Holy One results in good judgment. You know, there are an awful lot of people in this world that want to have knowledge about God. There are a lot of people here that want to have a healthy knowledge of God. Most Christians that I know have spent an awful lot of their life either in Sunday schools, Bible study classes, church services, whatever. And they would often supplement that by spending a considerable amount of time at their home, studying the Bible, trying to understand what the Bible says. But there's very few people that I know really believe this part. Fear of the Lord is the foundation of wisdom. You see, we spend a whole lot of our time in the comfort zone, believing that we have God figured out, believing that we are doing and living our life and doing what pleases Him. As I said, we're going to talk about fear. And we all have fears. I don't care how big you are, how strong you are, how tough you think you are. Everybody is afraid of something. I've compiled a little short list of common things that people are afraid of. First, it's probably a big one, arachnophobia. Does anybody in here have arachnophobia? That means that you're afraid of spiders. 1 in 3 women. So I guess the odds are a little skewed here. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men confess to having a fear of spiders. Let's see if I can pronounce this next one. Ophidiophobia. That's a fear of snakes. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot out of that. That's not one of mine. I'm not afraid of snakes, but that's a pretty common one thing. Acrophobia. People who have this may go to great lengths to avoid bridges and towers and any place that's elevated. It's the fear of heights. Anybody have fear of heights? Linda, why don't you just keep your hand up? Just go ahead and put your hand. We'll just know that you got everything. Aerophobia or aviophobia. Anybody have that? That's a fear of flying. No? Nobody has a fear of flying? Yeah, you lie. Cynophobia, the fear of dogs. Anybody afraid of dogs? Not in the South. Astrophobia, the fear of thunder and lightning. Anybody afraid of storms? Yeah, we got a storm person in here. My dad was really afraid of storms. Now another one I got to work to pronounce it. Trypanophobia. Anybody know what that is? That's the fear of getting injections. Anybody afraid of needles? Yeah, we got some needle people in here. It affects 10% of the population. I have known a couple of people that would actually pass out if they saw a needle. Yeah, okay. Right. And of course, we got our social phobias, like social anxiety disorder, people that just don't like other people. And here we are calling you out in the middle of the service. That must not be a bad one for you. Agoraphobia, fear of being alone. Yeah. Linda? No, you're not. Fear of being in a place also that you can't escape from, like claustrophobia. Yeah. Mysophobia. That's the fear of germs and dirt. Have anybody in here that is yeah. If you ever watch America's Got Talent, Howie Mandel is a famous germaphobe. You know, he doesn't touch people. He does a little fist bump, but he doesn't like to touch people. Any type of phobia, depending on its severity. Now, you know, if I walk up here and I walked over like this, and there's a big rattlesnake laying right here, you know, I'd probably jump backwards, but then I'd probably try to catch it. But, you know, but depending on how severe it is, can be debilitating. Phobias are actually termed by the medical community as mental illnesses. You know, some of them are so severe. So what if you have this fear of injections that's so severe, that you pass out? You avoid medical treatments. And if you do that, then your fear is dangerous to you. If you have such a fear of heights that you go out of your way, I've known people that would drive, 100 miles out of their way to keep from going across a bridge. If you have a fear where you spend most of your time cleaning, come to my house first, but after that we'll seek to help you. But if you spend most of your time cleaning up and being afraid of germs, it can be life-altering. But in all these things, sadly, the thing that we should probably fear the most is God. And nobody's afraid of God anymore. No, nobody fears God anymore. I think that most people think that they're okay. What do the kids say now? It used to be, I'm down with that, or I'm good, or they got crazy thing they say now. I can't remember what it is. But most people think that, and they think that somehow God will overlook their bad behavior. It's like, oh my God has blinders on. He can't see this. I'll get over here to the side. And in 2011, it's a book that I had to research for one of my classes at MacU. It's a book by a guy named Rob Bell, and he wrote this book called Love Wins. And it details his theory that hell as a place does not even exist. And that Jesus died so that all people could spend eternity in heaven. If we simply throw out the idea that there exists no punishment for evil in this world, then why does our religion even exist? I feel the same way about that as I do those people who believe in predestination. If you're already destined for either heaven or hell and you have no control, then what's the purpose of the church? These attitudes have left modern society with the feeling that God is not something to be feared. Most feel that God's like a good friend. That friend that you can call up late night and tell your secrets to. And we're safe. We could never imagine this God that we serve actually being mean or being scornful towards us. But maybe that's the way we should view God. Maybe we need a healthy fear. Now, I don't mean a fear that causes us to live our whole life in terror, like, we're scared all the time and we can't forget it for a second, but a fear that shapes our actions and a fear that shapes our thoughts toward our Maker. In many ways, we set ourselves up to live in this life in kind of a comfort zone. And we don't really think about the things that we do day to day. Those things that pull us away from God's presence. So this morning I want to take a look at fear. And I want to show you how fear is good for us, especially a fear of God. Go to the next slide. Our McAfee protection has expired. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't show up back there. That's the only problem. There you go. Fear builds courage. It's good to be afraid sometimes. As I said, there are a lot of things that we fear. One of the things that I'm kind of like James, I'm sort of afraid of flying. Now I read all the statistics. I go and I read every so often as to. Yeah, you can go, there's like 3,000 planes at any given time in airspace in the United States. I've read all the statistics on flying. I know how safe it is. It's probably the safest form of travel. But there's There's just something about being 30,000 feet in the air in a tin can that worries me. I just don't get that. Now, there are different programs that you can go through, that they have, and supposedly help you overcome that fear, and from that big word called aerophobia. And they involve some of them like a general introduction to flying, where you may start out just sitting in your easy chair at home with your eyes closed and you're imagining you're flying. Sounds kind of dumb, I know, but it's cognitive training. I've heard about people that went through such programs, and they jump on a plane now. They never really think about all the dangers associated with it. I could probably do that sitting in the recliner pretty well with my eyes closed and imagine I was flying. But the problem I would have is I'd probably fall asleep, and then I wouldn't get any benefit. Reminds me of a story I heard about some people flying on a big jet liner. It was one of those big ones, they got 4 engines, 2 on each wing. And it was a lengthy flight, and it got lengthier when the co-pilot came on the radio or the intercom, and he says, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We have lost power in our number 2 engine. So we're going to be an hour late. Sorry for the delay." An hour later, the pilot came over the intercom. He said, "Well, folks, we've lost power in our number 4 engine. But nothing to worry about. We still have 2 good engines that work. Sorry for the delay, but now we're going to be at least 2 hours late to our destination." Well, a short time later, the nervous co-pilot came back on the intercom and announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, I hate to inform you, but we've lost number 1 engine. We're very sorry, but we're okay. We're just 1 engine. The plane can continue to fly. But we're projecting a 3-hour delay getting to our destination. We're so sorry for the inconvenience." At that time, you could hear kind of a nervous rumble coming up from the cabin of the airplane, and one guy shouted out, "If we lose that other one, we'll be up here all day." When we overcome our fears, we can become courageous. Psalm 31, 23 and 24 says, "Love the Lord, all you godly ones. For the Lord protects those who are loyal to him, but he harshly punishes the arrogant. So be strong and courageous, all you who put your hope in the Lord." You see, as we put our faith in the Lord, as we follow him, our fears can really cease to exist. Now, I think a healthy fear of God is good. But as we come into relationship with him, as we do what pleases him, we really find that we don't have that much to fear. Now, does that mean no one should fear God? Of course, not at all. There are many people, our friends, our neighbors, right here in this community, that need to be living in fear of God. They're living a life that's completely opposite of what he desires for his children. And they should know that someday they'll answer for what they've done. But for those of us who follow God, we think that we have nothing to fear. And as we overcome that fear, we're empowered to live a life that we never realized was possible. Courage is a resistance to fear. Courage is a mastery of fear, but it's not the absence of fear. We should never completely lose our fear of God. Second, fear alerts us to danger. At the time that was completed, way back in 1937, the Golden Gate Bridge was the longest suspension bridge in the world. During the first phase of the project, as they were building that bridge, 23 men fell to their death. You know, there weren't many safety devices or things to do back then. And in every big project like that, some people lost their lives. Things were going from bad to worse, and they were beginning to try to figure out what to do. So when the bridge was halfway completed, they decided to take another look and make some changes. And here's what they did. They reorganized, and they built the largest net that anyone had ever made, and they attached it under the area where the men were working. Cost a lot of money, cost them a lot of time, but was it worth it? I guess you could ask those 10 men that fell down into the net. The work was done sooner than they planned, because not only did it save lives, but now the men didn't have this terrible fear of falling to their death. Fear is also good because it sends a signal to our brain that something is wrong, and we need to take notice. You know, I love the color red, but the color red is almost a universal symbol of danger. Take your stop signs, your fire trucks, those little do not signs, the little red circle with the line going through it. All things that tell you to stop, take notice. It instantly tells you that something's wrong, something we need to look at, something we need to pay attention to. In the same way, our fear has to guide us into what is right or what's contrary to God's will. Our fear, when it comes down to the things of God, should be used as a measurement of our relationship with God. Do I live in fear of God? Or do I have a relationship with God? Psalm 76:7 says, "No wonder you are greatly feared. Who can stand before you when your anger explodes?" Of course, the psalmist was talking about God himself. He says, who can stand up here when you get mad, when you get angry at us? Who can stand before you? The psalmist wanted to make sure that all people had a healthy fear of God. In this day and time, we get so much false information, and you hear people talking from this angle and that angle, and man, you can hear all different things, kinds of things about God. Do you ever wonder about those words that you read on the shampoo bottle? What does it say? What's the directions on the shampoo bottle? What does it say? Does anybody remember? Nobody washed their hair today. It says, wash, rinse, repeat. Now you realize by saying that all of you would still be in the shower this morning, right? Because when you repeat, when you get to the end, you repeat again, and we just be steady washing our hair. Those directions themselves are false, because you just never come to the end of it. So many things out there like that. That fear sometimes alerts us to the truth, because there's so many things that we have to discern. When you're living your life and you say, I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably shouldn't have said that because I'm afraid that I hurt someone's feelings. I'm afraid that I might have hurt God. Having a fear or hurting God or someone else is exactly the type of feelings that we should be having. Next slide. Fear pushes us to do our best. Do we always do our best in everything? I'm waiting for somebody that says they always do the best. Some of these old paper mill hands, did you always give GP 100% of your efforts every day? Yeah, sure you did. I don't know today that there's some here today that may have never had to do anything in public, but I suppose most of us at some time or another played on some kind of sports team. We had to give a speech in school or something where at least for the moment, the spotlight was on us. When we stood up and to do whatever it was that we had to do, that it felt like the whole world was watching us. People call it different things. They call it the jitters, the nerves, butterflies in your stomach. All these things are just another way of saying you're scared. And that fear is taking over. Fear affects the outcome of your performance. But if you talk to any of the sports figures and people that perform, they tell you they always get a little edgy. They get edgy before a big game, and they always agree that fear usually helps them do their best. Deuteronomy 10, 12 and 13 says, "Now Israel, what does the Lord require of you?" This is very important, very important. Take notice of this. He requires only that you fear the Lord your God and live in a way that pleases Him and love Him and serve Him with all your heart and soul. And you must always obey the Lord's commands and decrees that I'm giving you today for your own good. The first thing required was that you fear Him. God the Father is not like some big teddy bear in the sky. And that's what we made Him up to be. He loves us, but He demands our respect. I have no doubt that my Father loved me. I don't know that He ever said that He did, but it was just a guy thing, and I guess I have no doubt that He truly loved me. Did that love often include correction? Well, let me tell you what, that love often included correction that I remember to this day. I'm sure many of you can probably relate to similar stories. There were times that I was afraid of my father, but I believe that was a good thing because it may have deterred me from doing some things that I probably shouldn't have done and would have regretted later. If I am to serve God, if we're put on this earth to serve God, how do we serve? Well, let me tell you how the majority of the population serves. People who claim to be believers. If this sounds like your story, then I'm sorry, but it is what it is. The majority of people who say that they serve God put very little emphasis on church attendance. For the majority, people will tell you that church attendance is important, but their actions show that church attendance is only important when it doesn't interfere with something else. The majority of people who say they serve God may be contributors to the church, but they often spend much more on luxury items than they ever spend at the church. The majority of people who say they serve God claim to read the Bible, but it often becomes not much more than a daily verse that they receive in an email. The majority of people who say that they serve God believe they are saved because their sins are not as bad as their neighbor's sins. There's only one way to be saved, and one way to accept salvation, and that's through the blood of Jesus Christ. After that, there's only one way to live, and that is guided by God's Holy Spirit. If you're living and putting your trust in anything else, if you are living and putting your trust in any other belief other than that, today you should be afraid. You should fear today. God loves us and we should love Him. But more than that, we should fear Him. Jesus said in Luke 12:4 and 5, "Dear friends, Don't be afraid of those who want to kill your life. They cannot do any more to you after that. But I'll tell you whom to fear. Fear God, who has the power to kill you and then throw you into hell. Yes, He's the one to fear. If you don't fear God in some part of your life today, then there's a problem. There's a problem in your life if you think that you have it all figured out. If you think that you're above judgment. If you think because you're saved through your church attendance or the good things that you do in your life. Only salvation is through Jesus, and through the blood of Jesus, and by living through the Holy Spirit.